Good morning, everyone. Today I will be presenting a screencast on the contemporary issues of schooling, drawing from my life experience to address how education has shaped and influenced my cultural identity and values regarding race, culture, ethnic differences, and indigenous people. My name is Jayanti, and it amuses me when it gets mispronounced, as some individuals go to great length in correcting themselves. Teachers have often been a victim of addressing my name correctly, but I always appreciated the effort. The fact that my name stands out shows that I'm clearly not part of a dominant culture. Our cultural identity is intrinsically tied to our notion of self. Who we are and how others perceive us profoundly affects the way we position ourselves within society as well as the way we are positioned. For instance, Robinson defines identity as both visible and invisible domains of the self that influence self-construction. They include but are not limited to ethnicity, skin color, gender, sexual orientation, nationality, physical and intellectual ability. All of these factors influence the way we see the world and inform our experiences. School and its primary components, including curriculum, teaching, and learning, is a major social cultural venue from which our experiences and identities are reinvented. Hence, school has played an integral part in shaping my perspectives and values, especially as an individual belonging to a minority group for most of my schooling experience. I am from a Nepalese heritage brought up in Singapore. I was able to live and study in Singapore until I completed my high school education before returning to Nepal. By having the opportunity and privilege to complete my education in Singapore, I'm always grateful to have been a part of a highly recognized education institution. Although the education system in Singapore is globally renowned, consisting of the highest achieving students in international ranking according to the OECD Program for International Students Assessment, it is also important to recognize that the Singapore education system is not without its limits. For example, the streaming system and schooling policy plays an active role in maintaining and reproducing inequality among students. The practice of streaming with pupils of the same year being segregated into different classes based on results and assessment in several key gateways are contributing agents as to why some groups of students achieve consistently better outcomes from schooling than others. According to Hayes' article on young people in school, it is strongly suggested that a fair go at school for all young people is both a global issue of concern and a matter of social justice. A brief insight of Singapore's education system will be explained in order to further understand the systemic oppression of the streaming practices on certain individuals. In Singapore, compulsory education includes 6 years of primary school, 4 years of secondary school, and 1 to 3 years of post-secondary school experience. The Singapore Ministry of Education oversees the development of the national curriculum, which includes desired outcomes of education. The desired outcomes are student excellence skills and subject discipline knowledge organized into 8 core skills and values. The assessment and qualification in Singapore is created in such a way that students sit for national examinations at the end of the primary school, secondary school, and the post-secondary school. This exam serves as gateway to lower secondary, higher secondary, and tertiary education. The streaming practices based entirely in academic scores segregate students to different classes and limit students in choosing their desired subjects. Drawing from my life experiences, I remember being streamed in the second level, and this hindered my option to take English literature as it was only offered to express level students. Even though I was slightly disappointed then, I did not consider it to be unfair due to the systemic oppression and creation of false consciousness that marks the inequality towards lower streamed individuals. However, considering the wider context of my experience from a societal position now, I am able to use my sociological imagination to comprehend the inequalities I experienced as a migrant student as being rooted in problems within the larger social system. Over the years, the streaming practice has been highly controversial in Singapore as being a society dividing tool, leading to the government planning to eradicate the practice in 2024. In order to better understand the streaming system in Singapore, I will be presenting this video so that you can have a better look at how it all works out. Even though the purpose of streaming is well intended by the government, it has created disparity among students in terms of opportunities and imbalance of power through dominant discourse. This data, taken from the government website, reveals that Malay students who are the indigenous people of Singapore and students from other minority backgrounds such as myself often produce lower academic results in national examination. For instance, if you have a closer look at this chart, we can see that only 67% of Malay students were able to secure 5 O-level passes. This means that only those students will be eligible to apply for colleges, while the rest will have to opt out for vocational institutions. This proves that the education institution plays an active role in creating cultural and racial differences by reproducing inequalities. This is evident when the segregation of students based on grades creates a social structure controlled by a dominant culture. Using a Marxist paradigm to interrogate this idea, the dominant culture is able to exercise domination over subordinate classes or groups through a process known as hegemony. The process of hegemony can be observed in Singapore through the social structure of schools, where teachers broadly share an authoritative language that shapes understanding across the system regarding the nature of teaching and learning. This includes that teaching is talking and learning is listening. Authority is hierarchical and bureaucratic, and classroom talk is teacher-dominated and performative. The dominant discourses of schooling identifies the teacher as the authority who possesses the power in the classroom. As a result, students are generally compliant and classroom orderly, but this could also suggest that marginalized groups of students could fall through the cracks of competitive academic curriculum as they do not fit within the dominant categories due to the hegemonic process and imbalance of power. Students from marginalized groups also tend to be further disadvantaged due to their socio-economic and cultural background. A scholarly article on young people in school indicates that inequitable outcomes from schooling are linked to the characteristics of groups based on social predicaments such as living in poverty or being part of a minority group. Despite being part of a minority group, my cultural values and identity as a migrant student in Singapore was very solidified. I developed a sense of belonging in school through positive relationships with teachers and my peers. I also embraced my individuality and constructed my views on race and cultural diversity as necessary and important in schools so that as we interact with others, we can build bridges to trust, respect, and develop understanding across culture. While education in Singapore has shaped and reshaped my views on the importance of cultural diversity, my college experience in Nepal has enlightened my views on the impact of ethnic differences in schools and the importance of developing cultural capital in society. Even though I was from an ethnic minority group in Nepal, having gone through formal education in Singapore, my bilingual language skills became an asset, enhancing my cultural capital in society while also enabling me to adapt and assimilate seamlessly within the dominant culture and the education system in Nepal. Due to my privileges, I was in a less ideal position to internalize the social and cultural implication of the dominant discourse on ethnic minority groups. Coming from Singapore, I was not familiar with the invincible social hierarchy in Nepal, and it was only after enrolling in a private education sector where I realized that individuals belonging to a dominant ethnic group reflected a stronger social status. I learned that people in my ethnic group generally had a lower rate of literacy due to inequity. It was also uncommon for females to pursue a higher education after finishing high school, as educating girls was still not seen as a priority in most rural households. According to the World Education Review site, despite the increase of female participation in education, the school system in Nepal remains plagued by high dropout rates, with girls more likely to leave school earlier than boys. Therefore, due to my overseas qualification and experiences, I was able to use my cultural capital in resisting the systemic oppression of the social structure. Another social implication produced by the dominant culture is through gender inequality. In Singapore, normalization of culture through gender equality was highly emphasized in classroom practices, and as I was familiar with their learning environment, I had a culture shock in Nepal when I experienced gender inequality in the school and classroom practices. Let's have a look at this video that highlights gender inequality in Nepal. The ratio of male to female students, including teachers, in my school were vastly disproportionate, resulting in male students often leading classroom discussions. Initially, the concept of gender inequality was not of importance when I was studying in Singapore, but my values changed over time as I stopped taking it for granted. I strongly believe that my past and present experiences of being in the education system has shaped my values and identity as being multi-layered and influenced through social cultural factors. That is all for today. Thank you for viewing my screencast. And here are my references.